Okay, I think we'll start slowly now. It's 10:02, and I want to welcome you all to this event on advanced testbed for 5G and IoT scenarios. I'm really happy to announce that we have got the possibility to visit Telenor IoT Lab in Sweden. It's of course a virtual tour since we're all sitting here behind our screens, but I really look forward to a great event and a great introduction to what Telenor Connexion they're actually doing. Before handing over to Jonas from Telenor Connexion, I'll just give a few introduction slides, and then I'll just, as I said before, give the word to Jonas. Just a few words about myself. I'm IoT technology lead here at Force Technology, where I'm responsible for our activities within the advanced wireless communication technologies. So if you have any problems, issues, something you want to discuss on technical side, please reach out, and I'm sure we can help you. I'm also heading our membership community called the IoT and Wireless Club. It's a member community where people are able to discuss technical details about the IoT technology and also about wireless communication, and then again able to share knowledge and ask questions to each other. And the last thing I want to highlight here is I'm running our 5G Innovation Hub and Testbeds, which is an initiative where we are looking at how can we create commercial services based on 5G standalone. I mean, this is not about the typical enhanced mobile broadband service, but this is actually about how can use the different quality of service mechanisms that are actually coming with 5G, and how can they be used in different commercial services. A few words about Force. We are GTS, or RTO in English. We are about 1,000 people who are working in many different areas. I'm just trying to show some of them here. I mean, we have experts, for instance, within the wind energy sector, the power to X sector, the life science, defense, space, resources, circular economy, and of course we have many more. We are covering many more aspects. So if you have any technical issues regarding what you're working on, I'm sure we can find the right expert for you, so you could get access to the latest and greatest knowledge about what is going on within the different domains. And if you need help with either certification of a product or you need to test something, please reach out and we can definitely help you. To illustrate that, I want to show a single picture or two pictures from our facilities. I mean, we have about 250 different facilities. Here it's focusing on EMC testing, but we can also do testing our new ships construction, windmills, test different kind of materials and so on and so on. So please just reach out to us, and I'm sure we can find the right expert with the right knowledge and also give you access to the right lab to do the testing that you actually need. A few important dates before I hand over to Jonas. That's on September the 13th. We have got the opportunity to give input to the frequencies 3.8 to 4.2 gigahertz, which is actually foreseen for private networks. And if you have an interest in private networks and definitely want to give input to the frequency bands, please reach out to me and also reserve a date. Then on October 3rd, we are visiting a company here in Denmark called Kamstrup, who are developing smart meters. On October 8th, we have our third masterclass on 5G. So here we are going into all the technical parts of 5G. I mean, how does the 5G infrastructure look like? What can you do? How can you test your products and so on? And last but not least, I want to highlight that in November, we are organizing a tour to Barcelona for the Smart City Expo. And as you can see, we have a unique offering where we actually, because we are organizing a delegation tour to Barcelona, where we, of course, where you can join and get access to, and I mean, you come on a joint visit to different pavilions and have a chance to meet with all the experts and so on, and also meet people that are also into this area, both on local and a global setup, so to say. And if you would like to join or just like to hear more, you can join the information meeting on October the 10th, and also reach out to Rina, who's also on this call, to get a better understanding what this expert tour is about and how you can kind of join us. So coming back to the topic of today, we will talk about IoT and IoT connectivity. And just to put it into a broader perspective, when we want to digitalize something, it's about creating an end-to-end solution. So it's not only about creating a nice program or the nice device, but we have to ensure that the units of the user equipment that we have developed can actually talk to the network, or transport data both from the device to the network and from the network down to the device. And all of these data have to be applied somewhere. And that's actually in the cloud. Here I call it the decision maker, and you could probably think about a better term, but it's just to say that these data that are coming from the different user equipment will actually be used for some specific needs and also, of course, survey purpose. And that will be introduction to Jonas, because now I would like to hand over to you, Jonas, and then I hope you'll take it from here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christian. Great introduction. Yes, I will start sharing. 1 second. So that is ready. Okay, so yeah, my name is Jonas Karlsson. I work as a product manager at Telenor IoT. Our legal name is Telenor Connection, but for some years we have the brand name Telenor IoT. And yes, today we are going to talk about Test Lab, our new Test Lab facility. So I will be the one that do the presentation and most of the talking, but I also have a colleague, Robert Colvin, on the line here as well. I guess afterwards he can tell if I missed something, and also if we have any tricky questions, because I'm the responsible from the product side of the lab, and he is the operational responsible for the lab, and he is the really hands-on guy for this. So hope you can see my screen. So the agenda. So first, I think we can talk a little bit about testing in general, why it is important with testing, and why you need a test lab. And then, of course, we're going to talk about our test lab, what you can do in that, and what you cannot do in that. And then go through some typical test scenarios, talking about what you can test inside the lab, test packages. Then, unfortunately, we couldn't send this live from our test facility. It's quite complicated with cameras and lighting and stuff like that. So we have a pre-recorded video that we will show you that we have done in an earlier session. So you can see how it looks inside our test lab, both inside the cage and outside. Also, that includes a short demo of running a test case. After that video, I will continue a little bit about the process of how to get access to the lab, and then just summarize this. And after this, we will have a Q&A. So during this session, you should be able to write questions in the Q&A chat, and we will try to answer them as best as we can afterwards. Great, so let's start, but I just want to first mention a few words about Telenor IoT, Telenor Connection. So it's a quite busy picture, but as you can see in the left corner, we are part of the Telenor group, of course. And you probably know Telenor, it's a big operator, one of the bigger in the world. And we have Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark. We have networks in, but also we have in Asia. So we have several countries in Asia with also we have providing networks. So Telenor IoT is a business unit inside the Telenor group, and we are offering our customers managed IoT services and connectivity. Of course, via our own networks in the Nordics and in Asia, but we are aiming for a fully global deployment. So most of our customers are quite big multinational companies that want to have the possibility to deploy everywhere in the world. So we do that mostly by roaming. And we can offer more than 500 networks in more than 200 countries via one and the same SIM card. And as you can see down to the right, it's quite a lot of big permanent customers that are trusting us doing that. But today we are going to talk about testing and test lab. So let's jump into that. And why is it important with testing? So every time when you do development, you need to do tests to see that what you are developing works as you should. So that's really important, but I would say in IoT scenarios, it's even crucial. It's really, really important because many of our customers, they are deploying a massive amount of devices. It could be hundreds of thousands of devices, electricity meters, water meters, cars, etc. There are many. And due to that there are many, and quite often it's quite hard to get access to them after you have shipped them and deployed them. So you need to know that everything works as it should before you're shipping them. That's really key. Also, lately, back in the days, you have 2G and 3G mostly for IoT scenarios. Quite straightforward together with SMS. Lately, more and more new technologies have come. So you have the 5G, you have LTM, you have narrowband IoT. They are really great technologies. So they are adding a lot of new great functionality like LTM and narrowband IoT. You have the power saving mode, you have extended coverage, stuff like that. The thing is that also adds complexity and also adds a lot of new scenarios that you want to test before you ship it. So yeah, the world has become more and more complex and more need for testing. And when you do the testing, you want to have a controlled environment so that you can repeat the same test over and over. And also you want to be able to create the specific scenarios. You have a lot of scenarios, as we talked about power saving mode and extended coverage. Maybe some of these services or features only happens when you have bad coverage. Maybe it happens when you do a handover between networks. What happens, for example, if one network technology goes away and are replaced with a second choice, stuff like that. You want a controlled environment, and that is when a test lab comes into the picture. And Telenor IoT's test lab is a perfect place to do these types of testing. So, test lab. What is a test lab? There are different types of test lab. I think we saw in one of Christian's pictures something more or less looking like this. You have a test lab with a lot of spikes around the walls. This is an RF, an antenna test lab. So here you're focusing on the radio signals and how the antenna performs and stuff like that. This is not what we are doing in our lab. This is important. You need to do these types of testing when you're creating devices and antennas, but this is not what we are focusing on. We are focusing on the cellular connectivity, the messages sent from the device up to the network, back and forth, how devices are registered to the network, how they are communicating, and so that they do that in a correct way. So that is what we are focusing on. You can do that by a simulator. So you can buy yourself a simulator and hook up your device directly to a simulator that will simulate base stations in different scenarios, and that's great. But this is not how we are doing it. So here you have a picture actually from inside our radio cage. So we have real base stations and real antennas. So you are testing in the same way as you're using the device normally out in the world. You can test that inside our lab with a full scenario. And quite often, the most common scenario is that the customer comes to our lab, so it could be good to know where it's placed. So we are located in Karlskrona, Sweden. So it's in southeast of Sweden. And I know that we have a lot of Danish viewers here. So from Copenhagen, it's approximately a 3-hour drive. You can also take the train, and it's a direct train from Copenhagen to Karlskrona, and it takes approximately the same time. So it's quite easy to access from Denmark. Yes, and as we talked about, we have Telenor have a lot of networks in the Nordics. So we have Telenor Norway, Telenor Sweden, Telenor Denmark, and DNA in Finland. The unique thing with our lab is that all of these networks are represented inside our test facility. So inside our test cage, by a press of a button, we can swap country or swap network. So we can have Telenor Denmark, and the next second we can have Telenor Finland or DNA. And also we can create, for example, handovers between these networks that you're passing the border between, for example, Sweden and Denmark inside the cage. So that's really unique. And we have all the Gs, more or less all technologies available. So from 2G to 5G. Right now we have 5G NSA. We are looking into how to also enable 5G SA inside our cage, but that's not there yet. So let's talk a little bit more detail about our lab. So this is a floor plan of the lab, and this lab is quite new. We built it we started 1 year ago. We have had the test lab service for many years, but earlier we did that together with Telenor Sweden, and we were in their test lab in Karlskrona. It was not optimized for IoT testing and what we wanted to do. So therefore, 1 year ago, we decided that we are going to build our own test lab. So we have a new test facility next door to Telenor Sweden's test facility. And also we have a third one, and that's Telenor Links. Telenor Links are our business unit that do roaming tests for the Telenor operators. So they also have a test lab there. So yes, it's brand new. You can see the floor plan. Yeah, we have some desks and things here, but the main part, the heart of a test facility is the radio cage in green color here. So you have a Faraday cage. So what is that? The Faraday cage is built of specific material. It's like a metal mesh that prevents signaling leaking from outside to in or the opposite. So it's really important when we are doing our tests inside the cage that outside networks are not interfering with our tests. It's only going to be the one that we are enabling inside the cage that are there. At the same time, we are not allowed to distribute Telenor Norway, Denmark, and Finland outside. So therefore, it's also important that we are not leaking outside. So it's important that we have the door closed. Also, the whole facility is deep underground, so it wouldn't spread anyway. And as we talked about, we have all Telenor operators, and we are connecting them via a quite advanced attenuator. So all these base stations are connected to one and the same attenuator. And with that, we can steer which network that should be distributed, sending, and on what signal level. So we can damp the signals to be really, really bad or have it really, really powerful. And also we can swap different network technologies, what should be turned on and off, if it's 2G or 4G and stuff like that. And that's really key to be able to create these different scenarios. And also, due to that this attenuator is quite advanced, it has an API and we can write scripts. So that's really beneficial. So instead of doing everything manual, turning up one network, turning down another, we can pre-create a script doing that. And that's really great, for example, if you have a quite complex scenario that you want to simulate, that you want to run, then you can write that in advance and just press run. And then look at the logs, what's happening, and if everything works as it should. So that's one thing with the scripts. Also, it's good to be able to repeat the same scenario over and over to make sure that, okay, maybe you have a fault and you test it and then you do improvement and then you can run it again and see if it has improved. The last thing that is really good with scripts is that you can do automations. So sometimes fault maybe happens only once every 100 times, something like that. It's not always. Then it's really, really hard to replicate that. But with this automation, you can create a script that runs it over and over and over, hundreds or thousands of times. And then you can run it over a night or over a weekend, and then come back and look at the logs and find where the fault happened and see in the logs at that specific time what happened. As said, we have more or less all different network technologies. Also just want to say that we have GNSS, that's the global the satellites, so like GPS signals. So if you have a device that are dependent on positioning, you can test that as well. And we can run that also through the attenuator, so we can set it to bad or good signal conditions. Right now, it's the correct GPS positioning, Karlskrona, but we are looking into how to be able to simulate other positions as well. Important to know that configuration can change over time. So yes, these are real networks. It's Telenor Denmark, Telenor Norway, Sweden, etc. So over time, it can have different status. So it's important before you're coming, if you want to test, for example, Telenor Sweden's network, you want to make sure that everything is turned on that you would like to test. And also it could change over time. We're talking about adding 5G SA, for example, standalone. But someday, for example, we will have the 2D and 3G sunset. So one day in the future, we will turn off 2D, for example, in some of the networks. So that's good to know. Also, just want to mention that in the Telenor Sweden network, we have the most capabilities. We have even more possibilities to monitor on the core side and on the radio side every signals that are sent in a deeper level compared to other networks. Yes, we are offering this in 3 different scenarios. The most common one and the recommended one is that a customer comes to our facility and they bring their devices and they are doing the test together with us. We will have our test manager in place that are really expert on these types of tests and are the one that will steer the networks and create the different scenarios for you. But you as a customer come yourself and do the tests and tweaks your device yourself. So that's the recommended one. We can also do remote testing. So we have customers in Asia, for example, or in US, and it's a long travel. We have the possibility that customers sending the device to us, and we are setting that up inside our cage. And then we have the possibility to let the customer remotely connect to their own devices and run the test remotely by help, and we are going to be present in the lab at that time. The last one is testing as a service. So then the customer is not involved in actually testing themselves. We have agreed on what to be tested beforehand, and then we are doing the testing for the customer. Most of the time we are talking about, as we said, automations, that test cases that needs to be run for a long time, then it's not convenient to come and sit there in the lab. Then we can create the scripts and run the test for the customer, for example, over a weekend. So these are the different scenarios. I also want to mention that we do not do certification. So yeah, there are different types of certifications, and some operators, for example, are demanding that the device are certified before they are allowed into the networks. We are not demanding that from our customers, and we are not doing any kind of certifications, at least not yet. So we are enabling verification of your devices and not certifications. Some typical test scenarios and test packages that we have. Of course, the basic functionality is the most common one. So there are a lot of different scenarios to verify that your device works as it should, that data, SMS, voice, etc. works as it should. Quite common, you want to know, for example, how it will react when you have a really low signal. When will it lose connection? What will happen, for example, if you're totally losing one type of connection, maybe your primary technology or 4G, for example, LTE, and what happens if that is too low? How do you do a backup to plan B? That could be 2G, for example. How is that done, and how do your device react to that? Typical tests like that. Also, running LTM Narrowband IoT is really important that you follow GSMA's recommendation. The efficiency guidelines, that you are not spamming the network with too much signaling, that you have back off routines that are sending less and less over time if something happens. That could also be verified, of course. So yeah, most of the times it's the basic functionality that you are looking into. We have something called EICC testing. So EICC is the possibility to swap the SIM profile, to swap actually operators inside the SIM profile. So we have scenarios, for example, when we do a localization to a local network, and using that operator's SIM profile. You have different scenarios there. You want to test that so that works okay before you start shipping out your devices. LTM Narrowband IoT, these low power wide area technologies, they come with a lot of new features. They are they're focused on low power most of the time. So they have this PSM, the power saving mode, and EDRX functionality, how to pause or make your device go into deep sleep. So a lot of scenarios here, we're talking about battery-driven devices. You want to have your energy consumption as low as possible, but also you need to tweak these values. You can set different values on this, how much sleep you should have for how long time, etc. And you want to optimize your device. to be as efficient as possible, but still work for the scenarios that you're having. Then you need to do a power profiling. So that is really great to do in a lab. Also this extended coverage functionality that comes with these two network technologies. You know, when the signal quality goes to a certain low level, it will start repeat the message over and over to make it penetrate better. That could be simulated as well, to just turn down the signal level to start the device starting this repetition, for example. So that things that you can test. VoLTE, voice over LTE. Back in the days, we have circuit switch voice, quite straightforward. It just worked. VoLTE, much more complex. And also the concept that when you have VoLTE, you need to connect to your own home operator's IMS system. And all IMS systems have their own configuration. And it's more complex. It has more settings and possibilities. So here we have a lot of customers doing tests with their devices when they are enabling VoLTE. The 2G and 3G sunsets are going to take away the 2G and 3G circuit switch voice, and you need to level up to voice via VoLTE to still have that in the future. Then you would like to test this. Different handover scenarios. As I talked about, you have handovers between inside the same network, between different network technologies, but also you have the roaming scenarios. So a lot of our customers are roaming. A lot of them are having devices that moves. It could be a car manufacturer, for example. Then, of course, the car can go from one country to another. Then you need to know how it reacts when it passes the border and go from one network to another network. So that is done in an efficient way. So that is easy to simulate in our lab, to have one of the networks going lower and lower and one higher and higher until you do the swap. And you can monitor how that works. Quite often it ends up that we have a lot of customer-specific use cases. So yes, we have some packages pre-made with test cases already done that you can reuse. But many times the customer have their own scenarios and use cases that we want to run. And then you need to create those to list those test cases in a test specification. So as said, it's not only to find faults, it's to optimize your device. You have the most optimal scenarios and optimized configuration. Now I think actually the next slide is the video. So I think, as I said, we cannot unfortunately not show you live directly in our radio or in our facility. Instead, we have a pre-recorded video. I make sure that everybody is muted because otherwise it could be an echo. So I will turn on a video. It's me and Rob. In an earlier webinar, we had a walkthrough of our lab, both inside the cage and outside. So we are going to talk a little bit about what you can see there and what we have. We're also running a demo of a test case, a quite simple one. So I will turn this on and I hope for the best that it works technically. Otherwise you need to shout out. So I will turn this on and I think it takes like 13, 14 minutes, and then I will come back and talk a little bit about the process on how to get access to the lab.